Hey, and welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm Sherri. I'm a registered dietitian, and if you are following me for the first time, you will see that I am a registered dietitian, but probably a little non-traditional. I have a friend who recently started following me on social media, and she told me, I knew you were a registered dietitian, and I knew you do a lot with weight loss, so I just expected your social media accounts would have, healthy recipes and ways to increase your metabolism. And it's very different than that. I am a registered dietitian who cares more about why you eat versus what you eat. Although the what you eat is very important, and there are plenty of dietitians who address that. But I work more with people who know what to eat, but they can't make themselves follow that plan, eat that, make that choice at the restaurant, either, ever or consistently enough to get the kind of results that they want to get. And so today we are taking a look at how emotional eaters began, how parents unintentionally raise emotional eaters. So if you have a small children, or if you have, or if you're thinking about having children in the future, please take this into consideration and think about it as you start to raise your kids. These things will come up. And if you are older and you've already raised your kids, don't have kids, think about your childhood, and were these things at play when you were raised, and does that contribute to the way you eat today as an adult? So let's take a look. All right, the first behavior that I see that's problematic is that parents reward their kids with food. You make good grades, we take you out for ice cream, reward for being good at the doctor appointment, we'll run by, get you a milkshake, whatever. All right, so rewarding with food. Why is that problematic? Well, what I see in my clients is adults who are emotional eaters. I get them to pause and think about, why am I eating this? And sometimes the answer is, I'm rewarding myself for a hard day. I'm rewarding myself for fill in the blank. It can be a variety of things. Where did you learn that food is a reward? And it traces back to childhood. Now, all these things we talk about, some kids can engage in these kind of behaviors with their parents, and it's like no big deal. Other kids, it scars them for life. Why? I don't really know. It's different kids, different nervous systems, different makeup, different circumstances. But rewarding with food definitely is something you want to be aware of. Not saying they don't need a reward, but is there another way we could reward the child in a healthy manner that wouldn't teach them that food is a reward? That will get you into trouble as an adult. All right, what about bribing with food? And the other opposite end of that spectrum is going to be punishing the child. You can't have this food for this behavior. So clean your room and I will make this for you. If you don't clean your room, you won't get this. Okay, so this is basically manipulating the child with food. What does that teach a child? It develops an unhealthy relationship with food. Now, let's go back and say the kind of relationship with food that you want to develop is that the child knows when they're hungry. They know what that feels like. They can eat when they're hungry, and they can stop when they become full. They know the difference in full and stuffed and bloated. So if you're trying to raise a child that eats when they're hungry and stops when they are full, and you give them food as a reward, you give them food as a bribe, this is teaching them to ignore the hunger cues. It's teaching them it doesn't really matter if you're hungry or not. You still eat. And this can be dangerous. One of the most dangerous habits you can lay down is to comfort your child with food. And this happens naturally. Almost every parent does it. So we as parents are going to give food naturally, right? Because when babies are born, they're 100% dependent on us for food. So naturally, we learn to nourish and nurture by giving food. So now what happens when your child falls off a bicycle and they're hurt and they are crying? You want to comfort them. How have you learned to do that, Mom? food. You take them inside, you give them cookies and milk. Makes it all better. And it works, doesn't it? Yes, you have succeeded, right? But what this teaches the child is, if I feel bad, I can eat and it will make me feel better. A better thing to teach your child is, if you feel bad, it's okay. It's okay to feel down, sad, disappointed, embarrassed. Feel the feeling, process the feeling. Let's talk about it. It's okay to be sad, and then move on. Food is nowhere involved. Food is nowhere involved. I see all the time now people who soothe themselves, self-soothe, and comfort with food. And let's be honest, it's never carrots and broccoli. It's typically sugary stuff, sometimes the salty, the breads, the nachos, the chips, French fries, hot food like that. But nobody thinks it's comfort food as a salad, right? So this is another bad habit. How about loving with food? So again, I don't think that this is a problem. You show your child that you love them by giving them food, cooking food for them. I don't think that is a problem, because that is, again, back to birth. We have to do that for a baby. Here's where it becomes the problem. If you as an adult, if I asked you, how did you know your parents loved you? And when I say parents, I mean primary caregivers. For everyone, it's not their mother and father. How did you know that they loved you? And if the only thing you can come up with, or the primary thing that you come up with, is she cooked for me, gave me food, that is when we have a problem. And I definitely have seen that. Parents who could not express love for their children, so the only way they could do that is by giving them things. And because they were not able to give them a lot of material things, they would give them food. Okay? And I'm working with that client today, so not a good thing. All right, what else? Let's talk about some behaviors that parents enforce around foods, like making you clean your plate. Okay, this one, just think, if you're a kid and I have to clean the plate. Again, it teaches me to ignore fullness. Doesn't matter if you are full or not, you are going to clean the plate. Now, the argument some parents have is about wasting food. And I get that now. I have adults who say, I have to clean the plate. I just have something in me that says it's wasteful to throw out the last 3 tablespoons of mashed potatoes, so I go ahead and I eat it. And what I tell them that's been really successful is, yes, if you take the leftover mashed potatoes and you put them in the disposal, it's wasted. But isn't it also wasteful to give your body calories from mashed potatoes that it does not need, and it's in fact giving you signals that it's full and doesn't need any more calories, and you still give it the calories? You are wasting that food. You waste it in the trash, it's not detrimental to your health. You waste it by eating it, it is detrimental to your health. So which one is worse? So if you were a member of the Clean Plate Club, are you still a member of the Clean Plate Club? And how often does that mean that as an adult today, you eat foods you're not even hungry for because you don't want the guilt? Other similar situations would be, if you take that, you got to eat it. So don't put it on your plate. If you put it on the plate, you've got to eat it. And then also forcing you to try new foods. Sometimes people have those horror stories of sitting there in tears with their mother, forcing them to eat beets when they're 9 years old. Okay? Don't do that. If you have a picky eater, that's a whole different subject. But if you just have a child who eats normally, but you want to expand their palate, you just continue to keep offering the food. You don't have to force it. You don't have to make them sit there until it's bedtime and stare at the beets, right? That's not the way to handle it. Before I move on, I just want to sum up. If I had to give advice for parents raising kids, I want that child to emerge from adolescence with the following things. They need to understand what it feels like to be hungry, and that is the best signal that you need to eat. They need to know what it feels like in their body to be full, And they need to know that is the key to stop. They need to know what happens when I continue to eat and I feel full. What will that result in? The answer is that's where you gain the weight. They also need to know how to express emotions, and that distracting themselves from negative emotions such as sadness and disappointment, grief, it is healthy to go through those emotions, as opposed to a parent rushing over to make them feel better and giving them food or anything else really, but food to make them feel better doesn't teach them how to process and handle emotions. It teaches them to eat and avoid emotions. You don't want to do that. And also to learn that wasting food is okay. Not intentionally, but if it happens, it happens. That wasting food can also be considered eating food your body hasn't asked for and the body does not need. That is also just as wasteful. I did a video recently on how emotional eating begins, and I'm going to put a link to that video here on the screen and down in the description. So go check that out if you want to have more information about childhood and how emotional eating begins. We need to talk about modeling behavior. So kids learn by seeing the examples in the people that they respect, they admire, they love. What are the examples that are set for them? So they learn that by modeling behavior around food. So if you had a parent who was always on a diet or yo-yo dieting, that can affect the child. If you had a parent who was binge eating or seemed to eat large amounts out of the ordinary in front of the child, that can affect the child. If the parent talked a lot about their body in a negative way, then that affects the child. If they comforted themselves with food or they were an emotional eater. I talk to a lot of women nowadays who look back at their mother and say she was a stuffer. I've asked people, did you ever see your mother really, really angry, for example? And the answer is no. Well, people get angry, but this is a person who, when they felt anger, was so uncomfortable with it, they would stuff it, and they chose to stuff it and distract themselves by going to eat. So this is the example they set forth for their daughter, who, as you can imagine today, is one of my clients. Let's see. How about how your parents, the messages they gave you about your body? So it's one thing for them to think, it's one thing for mom to call herself, I'm fat, I got to lose some weight, look at my thighs. That is going to rub off on the child. The daughter's going to look at that and say, well, if mom's looking at her thighs and she thinks they're too huge to wear shorts, then I don't want to look like that, or I'm going to look like that, or, then I guess my thighs are too big too. But it's another thing for that parent to actually tell the child, you need to lose weight. How much weight have you gained this summer? I've had people who, their grandparents, I know a 16-year-old female, her grandparents gave her a bathroom scale for her 16th birthday. Sometimes parents will take children to a program like Weight Watchers as early as 12, 13 years old. The message there is you are overweight. And actually, they may be overweight, right? They may be unhealthy. I see kids all the time now who have high cholesterol at 10 years of age. And they do need to lose some weight. But with kids that young, you've got to be really, really careful at how you go about it. Parents also need to be really careful about judging what their child is eating, as far as saying things like, you're not going to eat that, are you? Or haven't you had enough? Or, making the child feel like they shouldn't be eating. It's a really delicate subject. The child may actually be overweight. A lot of 10-year-olds, 12-year-olds now have high cholesterol. They do need to lose weight. They do need to change their diet. But there is a really delicate way you have to go about it. If you don't, you'll end up scarring them, and you'll end up putting them on a path for emotional eating and being overweight and having a negative self-body image for the rest of their life. So you have to navigate that. Two things I see that parents do that is really damaging to the kid is comparing them to their smaller siblings. Maybe you have a 12-year-old girl and she has a 14-year-old and a 15-year-old brother, and the brothers are thin and she's overweight, and they can have the hamburgers and fries. Oh, but you can't. You need to get a salad. That's really, really tough at that age. The message is that I'm not okay, that I'm not like my brothers, that I'm fat, I'm bad. Really tough at that age. And the other really bad thing is when parents bring the bad food into the home, but then tell the child they can't have it. When you're 8 years old, you are not going to be able to pass up on the candy bars in there and go get an orange out of the refrigerator. It's not going to happen. So if you don't want your kids to have the unhealthy food, you can't bring it in the house. Period. So if you are a parent or going to become a parent anytime in the near future, I'm going to offer you a few tips right now. The first one is set an example. Lead by example with your words, with your actions. Teach your child how to express emotions. Do not blunt their emotions or make them feel like negative emotions are a bad thing, and comfort them with food. That is huge. Do not put a child on a diet that would involve buying them a scale, buying them a weight loss book, buying them a gym membership for the purposes of you need to lose weight, you're going to go to the gym. In fact, I would say don't even use the word around weight and fat. Instead, talk about what is healthy. It is healthy to have 1 piece of pizza. It is not healthy to have 3 pieces of pizza. It's healthy to drink water. It's not healthy to drink regular soda. Focus and use the word healthy. Also teach your child to identify when they are hungry and when they are full. Super, super important. And these are great habits. What you want to do in childhood is lay down good habits. What I see people do is say, well, the kid's skinny, so she can eat anything. Well, guess what? When that kid turns 35 and now they're overweight, but they're used to eating terrible food, that's when they show up, at my office and need help to lose weight, and they don't like vegetables. So teach the kid healthy habits, teach them portion control, and work with laying down the healthy habits and the foundations and setting the examples. That is the best advice I can give you. And if you see that your child has any kind of childhood trauma, whether it's intentional or unintentional, like maybe they're really close to a grandparent and the grandparent moves in and lives with you, and then the grandparent dies, and now the child is grieving, and this is the first loss they've ever experienced, and you see that they have gained weight since the death of that parent. It's probably because they're self-soothing with food. So if you do see any red flags like that, address them in childhood. Don't think they'll grow out of it. Don't think, well, they'll be okay. Don't ask them and they say they're okay. Look at the evidence, not just the words that they say. Sometimes kids can't even make that connection. A lot of times, actually, they can't make that connection. Like, I'm sad because I miss my grandparent. Why in the world would that mean I'm sneaking in here to get ice cream at 10 o'clock at night? They don't even put that connection there. So if there's any kind of trauma that has gone on with the child, and that could be big traumas like the death of a grandparent I just mentioned, it could be divorce, it could be moving around a lot where they're having to make new friends, it could be bullied at school, any of these things. If you see a change in the eating patterns, then address that and consider getting some professional help with a mental health counselor. So this comes to the end of our video. If you're still watching, I want to thank you for all your support. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel and you enjoy my content, my videos, I'm going to ask that you do that. It will just help my channel to grow. And if this is a subject you really are interested in, you want to learn more about, I'm going to put a link down below to my online course and group coaching. It's called Feelings and Fries. So feelings are feelings and food is food, and the two should not be intertwined. And if your food and feelings are intertwined and it's causing major problems for you, then I want you to look at my course on Feelings and Fries. We take a deep dive into how we got here and how our attachment with food and feelings began. Then we talk about how we're going to break it. Then we talk about or week 3, we actually implement the things we talked about in week 2. And then week 4, we talk about how we're going to keep it going. It's a 4-week online course with group coaching calls. So I hope you will join me in that if emotional eating, food, feelings is something that you want to work on. All right, hope to see you again soon in the next video. Thanks.